One time I actually read the book, and the author, the person whose name is on the book, cancels, blames the weather. I don't believe it. I just think it's a little late to keep her on a short leash. I'd hope she'd reconsider, but I'm not going to sit up and beg. At any rate, every dog has its day. It's just not May 7th, 2024, and I'm not going to let them waste my time, so we're moving forward with the interview. Standing in for Kristi Noem is somebody she wished she had listened to before she ever wrote the stupid book, Dana Perino.
And I'm going to play more from where that came from in just a second. That comes from Gutfeld, the comedy show on Fox News. And interestingly, normally not funny, anything but funny during that show. And also super dishonest, Fox News, that's expected. But here, a rare situation where it's pretty funny, as you're about to see, where Dana Perino pretends to be Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, and in so doing mocks her pretty brutally. But the context is, before playing that of course, Kristi Noem is having a very, very bad last couple of weeks, because it seemed like she was top of the list to be Trump's vice presidential running mate. And in an effort to further her chances, she is releasing this book, a memoir. And in it, she had 2 anecdotes so far that really have caused political fallout for her. The first being the story of her killing her dog Cricket. And the second being less an anecdote and more just an outright lie, which is her claiming to have stared in the eyes Kim Jong-un and met him. Now, when it was pointed out by the press that there's absolutely no record of this, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm removing this from the book. I'm removing that content from the book," is the phrase that she keeps using. But then, even more strange than the lie itself is how she's responded to it. Instead of going, "Listen, got some wires crossed, miscommunication with my ghostwriter or something, and thus I put in that anecdote and it's not even true. I never met him. Sorry, we got confused." Whatever you would say in a normal situation if you're trying to be honest and transparent. Instead, she does this weird thing where she gives these scripted answers that neither confirm nor deny if the meeting ever took place. So you're removing it because it isn't true, Kristi? I'm removing the content because it never happened. I went to the DMZ. Just a very bizarre thing. We'll reflect on those moments that we've talked about in past segments in just a little bit. But then, because these interviews where she's trying to defend that lie and the Cricket story have been going so poorly, she just abruptly canceled a bunch of them. And one of them was this Gutfeld interview. And thus, that was the jumping off point for her to be brutally mocked by Gutfeld and Dana Perino here. While you're watching, please make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button. And if you could as well, click the like button and the alert bell. Thank you very much. Here is this.
So, Dana, a.k.a. Governor Noem, did you write the book yourself?
You know, that's a great question for someone who wrote the book. And I don't think I will dignify your question with a response. And there are so many other important issues in the world, like animal cruelty.
You know, I noticed that you seem not to know what was in the book, yet you voiced the audio for the book. Did you ever read the book?
Thank you for reading my book. I said some words that were written about me, and they were in a certain order of, they call them sentences.
Yes.
And so I read those aloud. Right. I don't know if that means I read the book.
Okay. You know what? Would you blame, you've had a lot of controversies here, the ghostwriter, the editor, the publisher, was it their fault?
Well, a little known fact, another one of my dogs, his name was Ghostwriter. And I killed him this morning.
So again, normally Gutfeld is very hard to watch. But that's not too bad. Not too bad, Dana Perino. And now the way that she's answering those questions in such a bizarre fashion. If you haven't watched my past coverage of this Kristi Noem saga, you might be confused. Why is she answering like that to mock Kristi Noem? Well, because it's exactly the way that Kristi Noem was unironically answering these questions about, it's a simple question. Did you or did you not meet with Kim Jong-un? And colleague Cole put together this compilation, as we looked at in a previous segment, just giving you a sense of how repetitive and how robotic and bizarre her responses have been across all these different interviews to this question.
Quote, I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. I've been a children's pastor after all. Did you meet Kim Jong-un?
Well, as soon as this was brought to my attention, I certainly made some changes and looked at this passage. And I've met with many world leaders. I've traveled around the world.
I'm not going to. I don't talk about my conversations with world leaders.
Kim Jong-un. Did you meet him?
I've been to the DMZ. I've been to North Korea.
You went to North Korea?
Yeah, I went to the DMZ. And there are details in this book that talk about going to the DMZ.
Just as soon as it became to my attention, I asked for the content to be changed, and it has been. I asked to have adjusted and have the content and that name removed.
And as soon as it was brought to my...
Just to be clear, especially podcast listeners, if you're not seeing the changing of her outfit, if you're thinking that I'm just playing some weird loop of the same clip in some of these moments, different moments, she's saying the same thing, and that same thing happens to be such a weird response to a question, dishonest, but also weird, which is answering a question that wasn't asked. Did you meet Kim Jong-un? I went to the DMZ. Okay. My goodness.
Attention. I asked for it to be changed.
Yes, when I became aware of that, we changed the content, and the future editions will be adjusted. When I looked at the book and I saw that excerpt, I decided to make the change to the content of the book, and that's been done. I've been involved in policy for 30 years.
So maybe you did have a conversation with Kim, but you don't want to talk about it.
I will not talk about my personal conversations with any world leaders. It just won't.
So I'm just, listen, I would never, Jesse, frankly, divulge information about who I did or didn't meet with when it comes to world leaders, except for all of the anecdotes in the book that are still in there about leaders that I met with. It makes no sense. And this is sort of the world you get whenever Trump and MAGAism become the defining characteristic of one of the parties, which is that she's learned from Trump that you can be that dishonest. The only issue is she's so bad at it. And so even MAGA is going, this is weird. She's being as dishonest as a bunch of the MAGA leaders they love, but she's just not doing it like they're used to. And as you can tell, she cannot get away from her script that she practiced, and thus there's no human element to it that could hoodwink even the people who are constantly being hoodwinked by the MAGA leaders. And so a very unfortunate state of affairs, as media reports, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem appears to have ended her media tour to promote her new book, as both Greg Gutfeld and Dana Bash announced last-minute cancellations from the governor. So she's abruptly calling off her book tour. Here is Dana Bash on CNN making this announcement.
Governor Noem was scheduled to be on this program, Inside Politics, today. Her team reached out to us weeks ago to book her here, and we reconfirmed earlier this week. She abruptly canceled last night. We want to say Governor Noem was...
Look at this lower third chyron. What a lower third chyron. Veep stakes. Noem struggles to answer questions about oh goodness, sorry, let me start that over. Noem struggles to answer questions about killing her dog, whether she met Kim Jong-un. What a moment. And then here's one clip I didn't get to where she's on News Nation, and we finally get away from the dog questions and the Kim Jong-un questions. And now we're on a different question. So finally, we can take a breath of fresh air. She can relax because she can talk about something else. Probably she's way better answering normal questions. And here, take a look at the mind-bending answer she gives to this question, which is a pretty simple one. Do you think what Mike Pence did on January 6th was the correct thing, good or bad? And of course, the context is that Trump wanted Mike Pence to overturn the election results unilaterally in a way that would have been unconstitutional and crazy. And he didn't. So are you for the Constitution prevailing or just the orange guy that you like a lot?
To be the one who sets the example and to lead the world. My hope is that Mike Pence will endorse President Trump soon, because it's critically important that we're unified and working together to make sure that we take back the White House.
Right, but you didn't answer my question. Did Mike Pence do the right thing or the wrong thing on January 6th?
I don't talk in hypotheticals. The law's changed. That situation will never happen again because the law's been changed. So I don't answer hypothetical questions.
It's not hypothetical. I'm just asking.
It is, because it'll never happen again.
But
so in 2020,
what he did that day.
Looking back that day, I wasn't in the situation. I didn't have the information he had. I just think that Mike Pence today is making the wrong decision by not endorsing President Trump.
All right.
To be the one who sets.
Can you imagine? If you aren't listening closely, you may have missed and just it seemed like a normal answer. She was asked, do you think Mike Pence did the correct thing or the wrong thing? And she says, I'm not going to answer hypotheticals. Kristi. Oh gosh, Kristi. That's not what a hypothetical is. Oh no. Maybe she thought she was getting asked the question, would you have done? Would, in a situation in the future, if you were vice president, would you go along with that? But the question was just something that already happened, not hypothetical, already happened in this world, in reality. Do you think that that was good or bad? And she said, I won't answer hypotheticals. Now, I also think when politicians are asked hypotheticals, let's say she got asked the question, would you have done if you were vice president what Mike Pence did? That's a hypothetical. And I still think it's ridiculous whenever politicians say, I don't answer hypotheticals. Then how do you campaign for a position that you're not yet in? Because if you're getting asked questions about something that you're running for, then presumably a bunch of them, some of them will be about your record. What have you done in the material world that's already taken place? But some of it will be, what would you do in a hypothetical situation where you won this election and you were in this position of power and a hypothetical set of circumstances were confronting you? What would your response be? That's the foundation of campaigning, is speaking in hypotheticals. And so that's also ridiculous. Plus, she wasn't even asked a hypothetical question. So struggling a lot. And I'm curious to see if this is the last we'll be hearing in a major way for the time being of Kristi Noem. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments.